What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Mohawk Motors. My name is Jason. So finally, all of my parts have come to be able to get my fuel system set up on the LM4. Obviously, the factory LS4 fuel rails were not going to work for my application. I need a return style system to match what the car has. And it also makes it a bit easier for me to tune. And I needed something that was gonna supply enough fuel for our horsepower goals in this car. So let me show you what I have. All right, so starting out with stuff that I already had, I've got a bunch of 6AN line and fittings here left over from previous projects. I'm probably gonna need a couple of those fittings. I have an Evil Energy vacuum moderated fuel pressure regulator. So I need that to be able to maintain consistent fuel pressure depending on manifold vacuum, and down the road depending on manifold boost. I've got a Walbro 450 fuel pump kit. This is off of Amazon. It's labeled as Walbro on Amazon. It's labeled as Walbro on the package. So once I get this one fully unwrapped, we'll see if it's Walbro. I have two ICT billet fuel line to AN connector adapters. I'll show you where they go. I really like these. They make it really easy to connect a factory style push connect fitting to an AN fitting. And then I have a JEGS fuel rail kit. This fuel rail kit is marketed for an LS1 or an LS6 intake. It says it's a direct fit. From what I've seen in the research I've done, the LS4 intake is very similar. So I'm hoping this will be close enough that they'll match up. I'll need to do minimal modification to get it to fit correctly. But it comes with two fuel rails, a crossover, and then all the fittings and brackets you need to get it bolted onto your manifold. So let's get over to the car and I'll show you what I need all of this for and what exactly I'm trying to do. Okay, so here on the engine, you can see I've still got my factory, the original equipment LS4 fuel rails. Now those are for a returnless style system, and the car is already plumbed for a return style system. And I prefer a return style system. It makes it easier for me to tune. Rather than needing to adjust injector flow rates based on manifold pressure, as you do with a returnless style system, your injector flow rate stays more consistent because the manifold pressure affects and is adjusted for your fuel pressure by the fuel pressure regulator. Over here on the side, you can see I have my factory 3/8 fuel supply and 5/16 fuel return. And these are push-on style connectors. So I'll be able to use those two adapter fittings to adapt these to male AN that I'll then be able to connect to my fuel rails, which will make this really a very simple install. And I'm running -6 AN lines. Like I said, the supply is 3/8 from the factory. And that should be more than enough fuel to keep this engine happy while it's naturally aspirated. Once I start to boost it, I may need to increase the fuel supply size. But for the time being and until next year, this is going to be more than sufficient. So let's get the factory stuff off of here, the LS4 fuel rails out, and then we'll get the JEGS fuel rails put in, see what we need to do to get them to bolt down in place the way they're supposed to, and then we'll get the plumbing done over to the factory fuel lines. So obviously I took my injectors out of one side. I got one fuel rail mocked up with 2 injectors. Sitting it here on the bench, I think this is going to work. Fuel rail height looks good. The fuel rail hold down height looks like it's lined up right with the original fuel rail hold down bolts. So I think this is going to work. So I'll go ahead, I'll get this side set up, do the same with the other fuel rail, and then we'll get them put back into the car. Okay, I decided to run my crossover at the back of the engine. The biggest reason being that I'm not going to be able to reach it once it's in the car. So crossover is going to be at the back of the engine, and then my supply and to the regulator are going to be in the front. All right, so I've got my first little snag here that I'm gonna have to figure out. So the fuel rails, like I said, they come with the little tabs to mount them down, one at the front, one at the back, just like factory. But the problem I have here is there's not enough room for the fuel rails to tip back the way they're supposed to for the injectors to go straight down into their bores. So what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to take the mounting brackets off, because the hardware, it literally, this little nut runs right into this little tower with the threaded insert in it. So it physically cannot fit as long as that nut is there. So I'm going to take those off, see if the fuel rails will fit without them. And then if need be, I can fab up some brackets to go over top of the fuel rails to hold them down into the manifold the way they're supposed to be. So I took those fuel rail hold downs off, and now the fuel rails fit down, the injectors seat all the way down into the manifold like they're supposed to. I've got the electrical connections all connected back up. So all I'm gonna have to do is come up with, essentially, I'll make a Z-shaped piece of metal that'll bolt down here, come straight up, and then come on top of the fuel rail and hold the fuel rail down against the manifold so it can't come out. Shouldn't be too complicated or difficult to do. I'll just have to dig up some scrap metal that I have around here somewhere to make those. But to finish up my evening today, I'm gonna get as much of my plumbing done as I can. So I've got my So I've got my feed. I had this piece of line left over from previous projects. That was the exact right length to run over to the passenger side rail, and it helped me keep more gentle bends in the line. So I used that piece for feed over to the passenger side rail, runs back, crosses over, comes back up the driver's side rail, runs across to the fuel pressure regulator. Now, I like to put my fuel pressure regulator after all of my fuel rails and injectors. That way I know all of the fuel up to this point is at the pressure I set it to. So if I set it to 60 PSI, everything between here and the fuel tank should be at 60 PSI. And then I need to get a 90-degree fitting that threads into and seals with an O-ring. So it'll thread into the bottom of the fuel pressure regulator, 90 out, come right over here, and then connect back to the factory fuel return right down here. So once I get that fitting, I can make that last line, and then that'll give me enough fuel system that I can start this thing. I'm at the point I really want to hear the thing run. So I'm trying to get this done. Okay, everybody, so it's next day. My goal is to get this fuel system as close to done as I can today, which means getting the new fuel pump in. If I can get it out of the plastic. Getting the new fuel pump in the tank. Getting something figured out to hold those fuel rails down in place. And then that's pretty much it. So, I ordered this fuel pump off of Amazon. It's listed on Amazon as a Walbro 450. The label on the bag said Walbro 450. But it says right on it, TI Automotive. So I have to do some research, see if maybe TI Automotive and Walbro are the same people. A lot of times parts are made in the same factory and they just get a different name printed onto them. But this is going to be the fuel pump we run. Hopefully it's up to the job. I think it will be. And this is the kit that it comes with to get it installed. So I've got new connector pigtails. I've got my pickup screen, hose clamp, another pigtail. I'm guessing that goes in there. Yep, that seems like it. Couple butt connectors, and the little plastic fuel line. So I'm not going to go super in depth on this fuel pump replacement. It's literally drop the tank out of the car, take the old fuel pump out, put this fuel pump in its place, put it back in the car. Nothing special, nothing crazy, nothing particularly difficult. I'm just going to try to get it done. All right, I've got the fuel pumping out of the fuel tank. While I'm waiting for that, I was looking at it, and I think these fuel rail hold downs from the original LS4 fuel rails, they're just spot welded on. I think if I drill those spot welds and just bend this tab over a little bit further, I think that'll hold my fuel rails on just fine. So I'm gonna get one of these off and then fit it up on there and see how it looks, see if I think it'll work. All right, got my old fuel pump out. Looks like it's a replacement. I've got my new fuel pump installed into the stock sending unit. I did add clamps on the supply hose. It didn't have any before, but this is ready to go back together. I got a little surprised. You know, of course, I went through the effort to pull the tank out of the bottom of the car the correct way. Well, as soon as I get the tank down, I notice somebody has already cut an access door into the trunk of the car. What an asshole! So I'm guessing this is a replacement fuel pump that somebody put in at some point. And, you know, instead of doing it right, they just cut a hole in the trunk. Surprise, surprise. An asshole! But this is ready to go back together, so I'm going to get this put in. I'm almost done with my fuel rail hold downs, and then I should be able to pressurize this fuel system for the first time. All right, team, getting ready to wrap it up for tonight. I got the fuel tank back in the car with the new fuel pump in there. Really straightforward, remove and replace, nothing really to that. My idea using the fuel rail hold downs from the LS4 fuel rails did not work. So I whipped up some hold downs of my own here. I just used some 1/8 inch plate that I had laying around. It's probably super overkill, but bolts right in, fits right up, and should do the job just fine. All right, everybody, I'm calling it for this video. Fuel system is ready to go. Got my fuel rails with my homemade hold downs installed. They actually, I mean, they came out better than I thought they would. So pretty pumped about that. I've got everything plumbed up. The new fuel pump is in the tank. The only thing I'm waiting for is a little 90-degree ORB to AN fitting that'll clear the fuse block here to run my return line, and then this will be ready to go. That fitting is gonna be here hopefully tomorrow. It'll take me 5 minutes to get that line made up. And then, man, I think next step is gonna be the little odds and ends and get this thing fired up for the first time, which I'm super, super excited about. So hopefully this helps you if you're working on your own fuel system. It's nice, I mean, those quick connect fittings make it pretty easy to connect up to the factory lines that run along the frame rail, both in the cars and the trucks. So I'll put a link to those in the description for you to help out in your own project. And that's pretty much it, guys. Thanks so much for watching. To all of you that have subscribed, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And until the next video, take care.